everyone. My name is Ariam Ford. I'm the Executive Director of Grounded Strategies. I've got about 5 minutes with you all, so I'm going to make this a quick one. My background, I'm a trained city planner, got my master's in city planning at Boston University, but my undergraduate in history at University of Virginia, and both of those things tie into very much what Grounded does here in Pittsburgh, which is looking at how can we use all the vacant land in our city in order to basically extract health and wealth for the residents living with that hyper-vacancy. That relates to history because how did Pittsburgh end up with 30,000 vacant lots? You might ask. How did we end up with a quarter of our city being vacant lots? And that has a lot to do with deindustrialization, targeted divestment, redlining, racist lending practices, which resulted in large populations in Pittsburgh, particularly communities of color, where there are concentrations of low-wage workers, and to essentially be divested and lose all of the equity in their land, eventually be condemned and demolished for other investments to make way. This has happened lots and lots of times over the history of the United States, as well here in Pittsburgh. So that's an important piece of history when we're talking about climate justice, environmental justice. We believe that delivering justice here in Pittsburgh means making sure those parcels of land end up in the hands of folks living with that hypervacancy who have seen and stayed with those communities. Ideally, returning land to communities and community members who were displaced because of systemic inequities around land use and investment and capitalization of land, and then providing those people, new landowners, with tools in order to make sure the spaces they own and control contribute to environmental resiliency and climate resiliency in the long term. So we're gonna see, this is a long backstory, I'd love to tell you about it, but Grounded's mission is to work to improve the socioeconomic and environmental health of distressed and transitional communities by building capacity to reclaim vacant and underutilized land. We have 3 program areas: land stewardship innovation, design and placemaking, and land use policy. Land stewardship innovation is all about the people and the place. How can we make space and care for space in the most sustainable way possible, which requires both people and place. And so we're trying to look at all of the methods of organizing people, supporting people, while providing them the most low-cost, low-impact land maintenance practices. Design and placemaking is more about activated spaces, so parklets, seating areas, that kind of thing, spaces where the community wants to come in and be invited into public space. What does that look like? Who's caring for it in the long term? How do those features increase biodiversity and provide greater urban ecology in the spaces that once didn't have that ecological value? And finally, land use policy is taking all the lessons we learned from these 2 program areas, from the stories from our residents, and turning that into systemic change through vertically integrated policy changes. So we're working on the land bank right now. If you're interested in the land bank, that barely exists. We can talk about that. We're also looking at data policy. If you wanted to go see where all the vacant lots the city of Pittsburgh owns, good luck finding that data set, and send it to me when you do, because it doesn't exist. We're working on a data project through the Open Data Ordinance, using vacant land inventory as a way for the city to get compliant with its own rules, and hopefully allow us to better track and provide redundancy about that data from, not just believe what's being told, but can also show proof from ground up. So let's see here. Here's an example of a vacant lot in Pittsburgh. Homewood. This is 5 minutes from Target. Very valuable land. It's been vacant maybe a decade about. Lots of reasons why. Here's a home. In the past, homes were demolished into their foundations. So that presents a unique climate risk as well, given that most of these properties were built before 1950 and have high levels of lead contamination. And so when we want to recycle 30,000 vacant lots back into productive use, you've got to figure out a way to not have it be poisonous. And so I'm going to skip ahead to one. I did not know how much time I had, so that's okay. Do. Here we go. This is a really cool project that just wrapped up called PB&G. This is looking at parcel scale soil remediation using biochar. It is incredibly expensive to remediate lead-filled soil because you have to basically remove the top inch of soil and truck in new soil. So think about all of the carbon emissions that's created in that process. What does it look like to use biochar, which you can harvest locally using, I don't know, vacant lots, and import locally through a closed supply chain, which also sequesters carbon from the atmosphere, but leaches lead out of the soil at the same time, and it all lives underneath this cute little planting here. And so we're trying to show that this is what the city, anyone who's a land steward, you as someone who owns a house, this is what you should do instead of trucking in soil from across the country. Another example, this cost about $900 to do this, to remediate the soil. And so we are also trying to make that value proposition, you know, the other tip of the triangle of sustainability is economy, and we have to make things that people will actually use, will actually see the value that's for them. And we think that money is something, involvement, everyone understands. A second tool that I'll leave you with is lots of wildflower. This is in Larmer. It's an urban wildflower meadow made up of 3 vacant lots where we tested 3 different mixtures of wildflower seeds. It's a no-mow, low-impact land maintenance strategy for a city like Pittsburgh, who owns a plurality of all of those lots, about 13,000 of them, and who's responsible technically for cutting the grass. And they don't give themselves tickets, you know. So that's an environmental justice policy issue we're working on. But hey, instead of paying a nameless face company, City Source, or going out to mow the grass once a month, which costs about $50, you could have something that takes care of itself and looks beautiful and like has like this amazing sunlit space where you can like frolic through flowers 5 minutes from Target, right? And so that's the value of it and what we're trying to bring to these communities. So that's what Grounded does. We try to, this is a whole nother presentation. We try to bring that value to the land. This next piece talks about how people can own that equity once they've put in the work into that land through pathways to ownership. But again, I wish I had more time with you all, and I'll stick around a little bit if you want to chat. So thank you.
I'm so grateful to Ariam. It was a last minute sort of getting together, so that you were able to come, Ariam. You bless us and honor us with your presence. That was a great presentation too. Thank you.